Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Andrew Garcia, and I am going to discuss the introduction for research. A lot of what people do in their daily lives is based on common sense, more from personal experience or observation. Although at times common sense is not the best approach. Every now and then, there are contradictory theories about what is best or what works in a particular situation. Additionally, what works in one condition or for one situation might not work or might be useless or even unsafe or not safe in another, or when shared with other measures. Common sense approaches may fail to notice the impact of outside factors which may contribute to what is observed. This is where research comes into play. Our knowledge about everyday processes is based on scientific evidence accumulated through research. We rely on the scientific method when we conduct research. This method involves observation, measurement, and experimentation, aiding or assisting the researcher in coming up with an accurate finding or explanation of a certain phenomena or behavior. Observation involves systematic noting and recording of observable events and behaviors that can be studied scientifically. By observing behaviors and specific phenomena, we are able to predict certain outcomes which will be the basis of our constructive alteration or modification and controlling of specific behaviors. Measurement involves assigning numerical values to objects or events or their characteristics according to conventional or standard rules. Experimentation is a process undertaken to show that certain kinds of events are predictable under certain specifiable situations. So, when researchers are confronted with a research problem or a phenomenon that is enticing to explore, they may take steps in identifying what approach to take. There are two main approaches to a research problem. First, quantitative research. Quantitative research generates numerical data or information that can be converted into numbers. Only measurable data are being gathered and analyzed in this type of research. Next is qualitative research. Qualitative research generates non numerical data. It focuses on gathering of mainly verbal data rather than measurements. Gathered information is then analyzed in an interpretative manner, subjective, impressionistic, or even diagnostic. So, we will have a separate comprehensive discussion on these topics of quantitative and qualitative research later on. For now, let us first define what research or a thesis is. Because in college, one of the most important papers to be accomplished by a student is no other than the thesis. Based on the college curriculum, thesis writing is one of the very crucial requirements in baccalaureate degree courses like BSAR. A thesis is a research output which is approved by the college through oral examination, usually undergoing several revisions to improve the quality to be marked as passed. A thesis is also known as a type of research paper which has undergone several revisions in order to be polished. Another meaning of a thesis is a fraction of written research requirement being done by scholars for earning the degree based on their field of specialization and expertise. And there are some more definitions of a thesis, but so far we understand that a thesis is a type of research paper and it is a fraction or part of a written research requirement. So let us also understand the meaning and relevance of research. I have there attached a slide or the PowerPoint presentation. This is just go over there and watch or read the content of the slides for the meaning and relevance of research. The word research is derived from the prefix re, which means to repeat or redo, and the root word search, looking for, which means to find or look for. From the etymology or origin of this word, research literally means to repeat, looking for something which had been in existence before. Let us examine how research has been defined by experts. According to Mason and Bramble in the year 1989, research is concerned with finding answers. It is a systematic, organized search for knowledge or answers to questions. According to Macmillan and Schumacher in the year 1989, research is a systematic process of collecting and logically analyzing information or data for some purpose. According to Janato in the year 1993, research is a process of obtaining knowledge through techniques where truth, accuracy, validity, reliability, and other criteria can be ascertained or assured. According to Liddy also in the year 1993, research is a critical and exhaustive investigation or experimentation having for its aim the discovery of new facts and their correct interpretation, the revision of accepted conclusions, theories, or laws in the light of newly discovered facts or the practical application of such conclusions, theories, or laws. According to Emery in the year 1995, research is a systematic inquiry geared towards providing information to solve problems. An inquiry or inquiry is any process that has the aim of expanding knowledge, resolving doubt, or solving a problem. According to Beach and Gale in the year 1996, research is a systematic and empirical approach to answering questions. It is concerned with understanding phenomenon within the context of our theories and experiences regarding the phenomenon. According to Charles, in the year 1998, research is the continuous discovery and exploration of the unknown or not known. It entails or involves an investigation of new facts leading to the discovery of new ideas, new methods, or improvements. From the foregoing definitions, it is evident or clear that research is a process, And as a process, it has several distinguishing characteristics which differentiate research from other methods of gaining knowledge. Let us go over some of these characteristics. Number one, systematic. It is systematic as there are interrelated steps or procedures a researcher has to observe in solving a problem. It originates with a problem, followed by the gathering of data in a logical and orderly manner, guided by a reasonable guess or hypothesis, and ends with a conclusion based on observable facts or data. Number two, objective. It is not based on guesswork. This is because empirical or observable data have to be gathered by the researcher prior to making conclusion or proposing new solution to an identified difficulty or problem. Number three, empirical. Research is empirical as generalizations drawn by a researcher are rooted upon hard evidence gathered from information collected from a real life experiences or observations. Number four, comprehensive. If a researcher is serious about understanding a phenomenon, he needs to examine and analyze all aspects or angles before making a generalization or conclusion. Number five, critical. This means that procedures employed by the researcher must be able to withstand critical scrutiny by other researchers. Also, research is critical because it shows cautious and exact judgment. Number six, valid. Whenever a researcher formulates conclusions, these have to be based on actual findings. Number seven, verifiable. Research is said to be verifiable as other researchers can check on the correctness of the results by replicating the study based on methods and procedures employed by the researcher. Number eight, logical. Research is founded on legitimate procedures and principles. Number nine, cyclical. Research begins with a problem and concludes with a problem. Number 10, analytical. Research uses established analytical procedures in collecting data, whether historical, descriptive, experimental, or case study. Number 11, methodical. Research is performed in a logical manner without prejudice using systematic methods and procedures. Number 12, replicable or replicability. Research design and procedures are reiterated to allow the researcher to reach a valid and conclusive results. So those are the characteristics of research. Now, in reality, research is an act of studying a particular subject done carefully and extensively. The intention of research is to attain profound or great understanding in a particular subject. Research is very vital to everyday decision making. It arms people from wrong information and save time and money. It is important to one's success as he takes on life's challenges and career decision making. Here are the importance of research. To the value of research. There are different ways by which we can obtain knowledge and information. Since there are various means by which knowledge can be derived or obtained, we may be tempted to ask why we have to be knowledgeable of the scientific research methodology. Before answering this question, let us consider the different methods of knowing and acquiring knowledge first. Okay, number one, expert opinion. Expert opinion is one of the source of knowledge. When we have legal problems, we seek the advice of lawyers. When we are ill or sick, we consult physicians. Suppose a doctor told you that you are afflicted with cancer and that you have only 1 week to live. Will you believe him right away? Others will advise you to seek a second or even a third opinion from another doctor. This situation points only to one thing, that even an expert opinion can be doubted. However, there are experts who can never be doubted or shall never be doubted. Let me share this to you. These are the experts of the gospel or the words of God written in the Bible concerning the right to serve God and the right to receive salvation, because they are sent as messengers of God. Of course, the greatest messenger of God is none other than the Lord Jesus Christ, according to John 17:1-3. Then his apostles, according to Mark chapter 4, verses 11-12, and the prophets in the Old Testament. And also there is a doctrine in the Bible that taught or teach us about the last messenger of God in these last days, based on these verses: Romans 10 verse 15, Isaiah chapter 46 verses 11-12, Revelations chapter 7 verses 1-3, and others. So believing in the messengers of God is an integral doctrine in the Bible, that is based on John 6:29, because they are the ones who have the right and function as God's messengers, and they are attested by prophecies and by the pristine doctrines they preached. And this doctrine is upheld by my religion, Iglesia Ni Cristo. So I'm just sharing it to you. So the first method of knowing and acquiring knowledge is to listen or to refer to expert opinion. A sensory experience can also be a way of obtaining information. Through our sense of sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell, we can immediately know something. Sensory knowledge, however, is not always dependable. Take, for instance, the case of two young ladies. Okay, this is my experience before. So, doon ay duha ka estudyanteng babae, no? And then pangutana sila sa ilang classmate, ilang amigo or friend, to describe me as their instructor. So one of them said, "Gwapo siya," and the other remarks, "He's just an ordinary man." So sa akong huna, the first lady has a practical sense of taste, while the second one has a critical sense of sight. Okay, so another way of gaining knowledge or knowing is agreement with others. So others gain knowledge through agreement with others. When confronted with a problem, we tend to ask friends and even colleagues what they did when they experienced the same difficulty. In the process of soliciting their advice, don't be surprised if they do not give the same suggestion on what to do. This only shows that the aforementioned mode of knowing is not also a reliable source of knowledge. We can also gain knowledge by reasoning. Sometimes reasoning is derived from general observation to particular or specific cases. This kind of reasoning is called deduction. On the other hand, reasoning can also be inductive or from a particular to the general. Consider the following syllogism or statement. Syllogism is the term used in logic. So here is this syllogism or syllogisms statements. All men are mortal. Gary is a man. Therefore, Gary is mortal. Is the conclusion correct? Definitely it is. Why? This is because the first two statements or conditions are correct or true. We don't have to rely on our senses or nor seek agreement with others to confirm its veracity or correctness. Examine the next syllogism. If it rains, the ground is wet. The ground is wet, therefore it rained. Can we consider the conclusion correct? Definitely not. Although the first two statements are right, it does not follow that the conclusion is right. Why? It does not mean that the wetness of the ground is only caused by rain. This only means that there are dangers in logical reasoning that we need to be aware of. Common sense is also one way of knowing. All of us use common sense, yet it is difficult to define. The major problem with common sense is that it is not a systematic way of gaining knowledge. Research is another method of obtaining knowledge. It is the most reliable source of knowledge. This is because research utilizes the scientific method. This method involves five distinct steps, and namely identification of the problem, definition of the problem, formulation of hypothesis, projection of the consequences, and testing of the hypothesis. We have to be familiar with the research process or methodology, as it is only through research that we can gain valid and reliable knowledge. This is the value of research. Now, there are different ways of classifying research. We're now going to discuss the types of research. On the basis of who undertakes research, research can either be academic research or a research project. Academic research is one conducted by an individual in fulfilling the requirements for the conferment of an academic title or degree. Baby thesis, like what you will be doing and submitting, master's thesis, feasibility studies, and doctoral dissertation fall under this type of research. So that is the academic research. Research project, on the other hand, is a type of research undertaken by an individual or group of individuals as part of their professional work or assignment. For instance, a market researcher surveying the preference of housewives for a particular brand of soap is doing a research project. Based on the final use or application of the research results, research can either be pure theoretical or applied practical. Pure or theoretical research is one done for the purpose of formulating or a theory, principle, or law, excuse me, with no intended application of results. Research is in this case is undertaken for the purpose of gaining knowledge for knowledge's sake. On the other hand, applied research is an inquiry to test or evaluate a theory or knowledge arrived at in the solution of a problem or for useful ends. When methodology or research design is used as basis for categorizing research, research can take any of the following types: descriptive, correlational, exploratory, explanatory, ex post facto or causal comparative, experimental, historical, and ethnographic. Let's get the meaning of each of these types of research based on the research design or methodology used. Number one, descriptive research. This type of research seeks to describe systematically, factually, accurately, and objectively a situation, problem, or phenomenon. It seeks to describe what is. For instance, if you are going to assess or evaluate the work values of a group of employees in one company, you are actually doing a descriptive research study. Number two is correlational or associational research. In this type of research, the researcher tries to probe or examine on the significance of the relationship between two or more factors or characteristics. A researcher who undertakes a study to find out the significance of association between job performance and commitment is doing correlational research. Number three, explanatory research. In this type of research, the researcher seeks to clarify why and how a relationship exists between two or more aspects of a situation or phenomenon. Questions like why job stress contributes to burnout, or why low morale can lead to lower productivity among employees, are problems which can be investigated systematically through an explanatory research design or methodology. Number four, exploratory research. This kind of study is undertaken when the investigator is after probing or exploring areas where little is known about a research problem. Feasibility and pilot studies fall under this type of research. Number five, experimental research. This type of research probes or investigates into the cause of an effect by exposing one or more experimental groups to one or more treatments or conditions. For example, when a mathematics professor is after determining the effectiveness of a learning module in raising the performance of his students, he is actually engaging in experimental research. Number six, ex post facto or causal comparative research. Research is of this type when the investigator delves or focuses in analyzing the possible effect of a factor which cannot be manipulated and controlled. A guidance counselor who is after singling out the variables associated with failing marks in some college courses, or a health science student who is interested in the incidence of lung cancer among heavy smokers, are examples of situations where this type of research is appropriate to employ. Number seven, historical research. In historical research, the researcher attempts to reconstruct the past objectively. Again, the researcher attempts to reconstruct the past objectively and accurately, or to explain an incident that happened in the past with the use of data taken from the past. For instance, why Filipino elite collaborated with the American imperialists during the American regime can be best answered through the said research methodology. Number 8, ethnographic research. This type of research is done when the researcher is concerned with explaining or describing a phenomenon holistically with the use of multiple data collection techniques. A topic like the culture of Bisawer graduate students of TMC is an example of this research methodology. Now, as a systematic process of solving a problem or adding to the existing body of knowledge, research is not haphazardly or incompletely done. It follows a standard procedure in a logical sequence of steps, which are the following. Step 1, idea generating phase or stage. Research begins with an idea in which the researcher has interest. It is in this phase or stage wherein the researcher has to identify topics that interest him the most. It is in this step where he has to justify why a study on a particular topic is needed. Once a topic of interest is already identified, the researcher has to start reading articles and books, talk with people who are knowledgeable in the area, and begin thinking about it. So that is step number 1. Step number 2, problem definition phase. As the idea generated in the first phase or step are very general or vague, the researcher has to refine them. This is the problem definition phase. This step involves the following activities: identification and definition of the variables to be studied, and we will have a separate discussion on this topic about the variables later on. Okay, another activities are the development of the theoretical and conceptual frameworks of the study, the formulation of the major and specific problems to be investigated, and the formulation of hypotheses. Okay, so that is step number 2, problem definition phase. Step number 3, procedures design phase. After identifying the problems and hypotheses, the researcher has to decide on the methods and procedures he will use in the collection and analysis of data. This is the procedures design phase. The activities a researcher has to undertake in this phase include the following: selection of research participants, decision on what research methodology to employ, development and validation of data gathering tools, specification of the procedures to be observed in the actual collection of data, and planning and analysis of the data gathered. So that is step number 3. Step number 4, data collection phase. After preparing the research plan, the researcher has to proceed collecting the data from the subjects of the study. It is in this phase where the procedures designed in the previous step are implemented by the researcher rigorously or strictly. Step number 5, data analysis phase. In this particular phase or stage, the researcher analyzes the collected data from the previous step based on his data analysis plan. Appropriate qualitative and quantitative techniques and procedures are then applied to the data that have been recorded, coded, and tabulated. Okay, so we will discuss further these qualitative and quantitative techniques and procedures that are applied to the analysis of data. But before that, let us continue first on knowing the steps in the research process. So we have what are the steps? Step number 1, idea generating phase. Step number 2, problem definition phase. Step number 3, procedures design phase. Step number 4, data collection phase. And step number 5, data analysis phase. And now the step number 6 is called interpretation phase. Having analyzed the data in step number 5, the researcher continues to make sense out of the data by interpreting the results in terms of how they aid in responding to the research problem posed at the beginning of the study and how this answer contributes to knowledge in the field. After generating answers to the problem, the researcher has to compare the results predicted based on the theoretical framework of the study. So that is step number 6. Now step number 7, communication phase. After completing the data analysis and interpretation phases, the researcher has to prepare a written and oral report of the study conducted, either for publication or presentation to a panel of experts. This report has to include a description of all the above steps in the research process and what is required of you is to accomplish a thesis. So just take note of this. The process that you gonna do is the research or research methods, but the product, which is the requirement for your course, is the thesis. So remember that thesis is a substantial research project, which is usually a course requirement pertaining to the scholarly report on findings in the process of a scientific investigation, written according to specific methods and procedures prescribed by the educational institution. We will have a separate comprehensive discussion on on thesis writing next time. For now, as I mentioned earlier, let me discuss the qualitative and quantitative methods of research, which can also be the two types of research. Okay, here is a more detailed point-by-point comparison between the two types of research, qualitative research and quantitative research. Okay, number 1, goal or aim of the research. The primary aim of qualitative research is to provide a complete, detailed description of the research topic. Quantitative research, on the other hand, focuses more in counting and classifying features and constructing statistical models and figures to explain what is observed. Number 2, based on usage, qualitative research is ideal for earlier phases of research project, while for the latter part of the research project, quantitative research is highly recommended. Quantitative research provides the researcher a clearer picture of what to expect in his research compared to qualitative research. Number 3, data gathering instrument. The researcher serves as the primary data gathering in qualitative research. Here, the researcher employs various data gathering depending upon the approach of his research. Examples of data gathering strategies used in qualitative research are individual in-depth interviews. So kanang interview nga mo puyo gyud ka dito sa mga tao nga imong interview. So that is in-depth interview. Another, structured and non-structured interviews. Okay? So kanang dunay questionnaire. And then focus groups, narratives, content or documentary analysis, participant observation, and archival research. So archival research, mag-research ka dito sa library, sa archives library. Archives means dito gibutang or stock ang mga historical books. Okay. Number 4 is type of data. The presentation of data in qualitative research is in the form of words, from interviews, and images like videos, or objects such as artifacts. So kanang mga karaang butang. If you are conducting a qualitative research, what will most likely appear in your discussion are figures in the form of graphs. However, if you are conducting a quantitative research, what will most likely appear in your discussion are tables containing data in the form of numbers and statistics. Number 5, approach. Qualitative research is primarily subjective in approach, as it seeks to understand human behavior and reasons that govern such behavior. Researchers have the tendency to become subjectively immersed in the subject matter in this type of research method. In quantitative research, researchers tend to remain objectively separated from the subject matter. This is because quantitative research is objective in approach, in the sense that it only seeks precise measurements and analysis of target concepts to answer his inquiry. So in determining which method should be used, okay, so there are debates tackling which method is better than the other. The reason why this remains unresolved until now is that each has its own strengths and weaknesses, which actually vary depending upon the topic the researcher wants to discuss. This then leads us to the question, which method should be used? It's either qualitative or quantitative. Okay, so the goals of each of the two methods have already been discussed above. Earlier. Therefore, if your study aims to find out the answer to an inquiry through numerical evidence, then you should make use of the quantitative research. However, if in your study you wish to explain further why this particular event happened or why this particular phenomenon is the case, then you should make use of qualitative research. Some studies make use of both quantitative and qualitative research, letting the two complement each other. If your study aims to find out, for example, what dominant human behavior is towards a particular object or event, and at the same time aims to examine why this is the case, it is then ideal to make use of both methods. So that's all for our discussion for today. It's all about in an introduction of research. So attach here as I post this audio will be your activities or exercises and also a quiz. So just watch out for that. Thank you and have a nice day to all of you.